Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live. Talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynncullenshow@gmail.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
Hello there and a good morning to you. It be the 14th of the 8th month of 24. What is it, 83 days now? Not that anyone's counting. But boy, I want to get this election in the rearview mirror so that we can then take on these SOBs who are going to continue to live in their insane asylum, their unreality. Dear God. Okay. Hey, I just want to apologize vociferously to anybody who may have heard the horrific belch that I emitted before the show started. I didn't have my mute button on, but I did have the stream up, and I saw that there were 4 people supposedly already in the door. So I mean, if when you were listening to that music, you heard this, the kind of belch you do if you're by yourself and you're certain that no one is going to hear it. It was prodigious, and it was only after I let it out that I thought, oh my God, my mic, help. So to the possibly 4 people who were in before the show even started, I want to apologize. I'm thoroughly embarrassed. Okay. So, good news breaking today about the inflation rate and that which is supposed to give Republicans some talking points. For the first time, it was the data came out today. For the first time since early 2021, the inflation rate is below 3%. Man, I remember, actually, it was shortly after I came to live here in the early 80s, when the inflation rate was like, what was it? It was like 18%. It was unbelievable. I mean, under 3, it's extraordinary. So I just want to say that bodes well for the Democrats. Also boding well for the Democrats is the Zoom call last night for Republicans for Harris, which garnered more than 70,000 participants, including a former member of the House of Representatives who was so right-wing, he was a member of the Freedom Caucus, and he is voting for Harris. I know, makes your head explode. I think his name is Riggleman. He said that he could absolutely in no way support somebody who clearly does not believe in the Constitution of the United States and whom he called a inveterate liar, which none of us would question. 'Tis true. Okay. And also, so there were 42 people over Trump's first and last presidency who served in his cabinet. 42. Only 24 are endorsing him this time around. His own cabinet. And you have to wonder if there aren't others who just, don't have the cojones to speak out. But of the 42 members of his cabinet, only 24 of them are supporting his bid for a second go round. And that's, I mean, it's not good enough. I mean, one of them who is supporting him is his Attorney General, Bill Barr, who, I mean, you may recall, it wasn't even a year ago that Bill Barr was heard to say that Donald Trump shouldn't be anywhere near the Oval Office. That's what he said. But now he has gotten behind his attempt to re-enter the Oval Office. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Bill Barr. Man, I hope they get that guy sometime. Well, never mind. Grumble, grumble, and mumble. Hey, I just want to get something in here that is just one of those passing thoughts I had, and just want to throw it out there. When I was on 4 different airplanes or jets last weekend when I traveled to my mom's birthday in Green Bay. And the one thing I hate flying. I mean, I hate flying commercial because it's, well, I don't have to go into why. But the one pleasure I get is looking out the window. I will never tire of getting that bird's eye view of whatever city I'm flying in and or out of looking at the landscape, of the layout of roads and rivers and of the extraordinary greenery and the expanse of this country, of flying into clouds and then breaking free and above them. It's just, to me, so glorious, so otherworldly. I'll never, ever tire of it. So here's what I noticed this weekend. All by far, and I noticed on the first plane and then made a point of really looking on the second, third, and fourth. Most people at the window seats close the window so they can't see out. And even if I'm not at a window seat, if there's windows open, I'm looking out them. I'm looking at whatever I can see. And damn, on 2 of the flights, there was no windows in my purview that I could look out of. And that blows my mind. I don't get it. I mean, for one thing, don't you want to have some sense of where you are? I mean, especially if you're coming in for a landing, you don't want to follow your descent and know when you're about to touch down. I mean, I find it extraordinarily jarring if I don't know at all and bang, you touch down, especially if it's not a particularly smooth landing. I'm really blown away, stunned, mouth agape. at how, from just my anecdotal reading, most people don't want or choose to look out the window. I want to know why they have window seats then. Why can't folks like me have window seats? So I mean, I really am stunned. In fact, I'm so into looking out the window that I twice woke up my sleeping son, who he's one of those people who gets on a plane, closes his eyes, and he's out. I could no more sleep on an airplane than I think I once managed a cat nap. I once even flew first class in a long, like it was a 10-hour flight. I flew first class and had essentially a bed, pillow. I could totally stretch out, and I could not sleep a wink. My kid, out cold. And twice I jabbed him, woke him up to say, look, look. Once it was at the amazing clouds that we were in. And I forget the other was, as we're coming into Green Bay, you fly over the body of water, Green Bay, which is part of Lake Michigan, and it was just a glorious day. And then you go right over Lambeau Field, and it just looks so, everything looks so beautiful that anyway, we were about to land. I mean, it's like 2 seconds after you go over Lambeau, you land. So I jabbed him then too. Neither time did he seem particularly impressed, and I don't get it. I don't understand. So I just wanted to share that with somebody because it's in my head. I keep thinking about it. I mean, it's been days now, and I just, in some moments I sit and think, why wouldn't anybody want to look? It's not like we can fly, really. This is the only time we get these extraordinary views, perspectives. Unbelievable. So there. I thought I'd feel better once I got that off my chest, and I don't. I just feel angry, bewildered. Anyway, okay, there's that. Put it aside, Cullen, and relax. Uh, what else we got going here? Hey, I haven't said anything recently about Ukraine, and mostly because it was so upsetting to me. But, there's good news. I love it. I love the first time since World War II that Russia has gotten a little bit of its own medicine. In fact, Ukraine, with its extraordinary surprise incursion into Russia, has captured more Russian territory in a week than Russia has captured of Ukrainian territory this entire calendar year. Ha ha. All of a sudden, it's Russians running from their towns, running for their lives. And it's going to upend Putin's propaganda about the war and how it's going. So I just want to say I've enjoyed that immeasurably. Um, Nobody, I hope, listened to that Musk Trump ridiculous thing the other night, did you? I saw Jimmy Fallon uh, said something that it does make you wonder. He said, "Geez, you know, it's a little odd that the guy who builds self-driving cars and spaceships hasn't figured out how to broadcast a phone call." Indeed. I mean, I could do that. Well, I don't have, I know. I can do that. Um, what else do I have? I mean, it starts getting really serious, so I'm inclined not to want to go there. I have I have been in a better mood for weeks now, and I'm loath to let it go. So I just don't wanna. Have you seen? Do you get your any meds from from the in the mail? A lot of us do. I speak specifically of us old farts. Mail, um, mail is the way that a lot of us get our drugs, and I have wondered about this, and now here it is. Doctors, pharmacists, and others say that a lot of the meds that are being transported in by whatever mail, UPS, FedEx, that come to us in delivery trucks, as so much does, are being subjected to extraordinarily hot temperatures. I mean, we all are, but not up to 150 degrees, which is how hot the cargo containers of some of the delivery trucks can get. And a lot of these meds will break down in those temperatures. Their components can be altered by the high temperatures. If you ever bothered to look at the fine print on your meds, it often says to store them at a range of 68 to 77 degrees. And let me tell you, if the meds that you're taking had one of these scorching periods in their transit, they could well not be really very good anymore, and perhaps even harmful. I'm just saying. Meanwhile, I mean, since we won't know, you don't know. I and this is where something called government regulation uh, is required to make sure that these medicines are in fact still in good shape when they get to us who have paid for them and are assuming they are in good shape. Um, we cannot expect the pharmaceutical industry to ensure that safety unless there's a gun to their heads. Nor can we expect, Amazon or UPS or the Postal Service to do it because it would require them spending money to be able to keep those pharmaceuticals at the proper temperatures. So I'm just saying, something you can worry about if you want to. Me, I'm not going to. Good news, the folks in Arizona, which is a swing state, are going to be able to decide in November whether to have a constitutional amendment that would establish the right to abortion in that state. Enough signatures, as a matter of fact, way beyond the number of signatures required, were gathered. In fact, the largest number of signatures for any ballot measure in Arizona state history. And the good news is not only will the people of Arizona get to enshrine abortion rights in their constitution, but it will, of course, be a driver of voters to the polls. The same thing in Missouri. People in Missouri will have the opportunity. And those aren't the only ones. Those are just the last two who have made this growing list. I'm thinking, I know Florida, people in Florida will be able to do this. New York State, Nevada, another important state. So this is again going to be driving voters for whom that is an important issue to the polls. South Dakota, Colorado, Maryland, all of those people are going to be able to, by a vote, potentially enshrine abortion access in their states, with nobody being able to fiddle with it. So that is extraordinarily good news. And I don't know, correct me if I am wrong, but we here in Pennsylvania, I know we're not going to have such a referendum on the ballot, but I also think, and I want somebody who's paying more attention than I don't think we have the kind of mechanism that these other states have, which is an outrage in its own. I don't think just by gathering signatures of voters that a referendum question can be on the ballot. Doesn't the state legislature somehow have a role in Pennsylvania that makes it difficult for these grassroots efforts to put a question directly to the voters in Pennsylvania be extremely difficult? I'm not absolutely certain, but it's rare that we see referenda or constitutional amendments on our ballots. And it seems to me that when we do, they are not a product. They are not coming from the people, as these measures are. They're coming top down from the legislature and usually worded in such a way as to make it impossible to decipher what the hell it is they're asking of us. So if anyone knows, geez, Margaret says her meds are wrapped in ice by FedEx. Whoa! Well, good for them. Good for you. Mine aren't. Mine just end up in the mailbox, along with all that other crap, including, and it's becoming more and more the norm, my neighbor's mail. I have become a part-time mail carrier in that invariably, including yesterday, My neighbor's mail is in my mailbox, so I, have to schlep over to their house and deliver the mail. God, I mean, how hard can it be, really? Um, um, a story that I have not talked about, but which I thought was huge, is the Egypt Trump connection. Are you aware of that? The story's old now, but I was reminded of it yesterday. And I mean, a lot of people who have looked at this say, this is really the most serious allegation of presidential bribery in American history. And it didn't even make a ripple. And even worse than not making a ripple, it's now so far in the past that Trump has gotten free of the ability of the law to catch him. It's just mind blowing. And for those of you who didn't ever pay attention to it, it reads like you cannot believe it. I mean, it was just a few days, I think, before the election in which he won, that, or it was had he won, but he was about to take office? I can't quite remember. Sorry about that part. But our intelligence learned that someone at a bank, the Egyptian National Bank in Cairo, and the closest branch to the airport, was asked to immediately bundle in American dollars $10 million. And within days of that, Trump, according to the CIA, happened to give about $10 million to his campaign. With the CIA looking into this, and for that matter, remember the Mueller report, Special Prosecutor Mueller, who was looking into the Russian crap with him? People who are part of that now say Mueller had much more stuff on this Egyptian thing than even on the Russia thing. So he had more stuff looking like Trump had made a deal with the Egyptians for them to funnel this 10 million bucks to him. And obviously this is a quid pro quo kind of arrangement, because when he did get in office, he managed to send a whole lot more than 10 million to Egypt. Egypt was more than paid back. They got $1.5 billion in military aid. And the investigation that was going on into this continued after Trump was in the White House, in the Justice Department, until Bill Barr, who we've mentioned earlier, took over and he blocked the investigation. Trump, who loves dictators, astonishingly called el-Sisi, the dictator of Egypt, my favorite dictator. It is believed that it was el-Sisi who gave the order, and there you had it. This, unbelievable bribe. Now, Menendez got a few gold bars, and he's going to be going to jail for it. Trump, as usual, he really has been, I'm hoping it's ending soon, the luckiest man in the world, constantly avoiding the consequences of his illegalities, which you can't even keep up with. This was initially reported by the Washington Post. I think at the time CNN had some stuff on it, and it went nowhere. And then Barr totally buried it. Really something. The New York Times reported that in the opinion of a lot of agents and prosecutors who were working with Mueller, Robert Mueller, and as special counsel, they really felt that, as I said, that the intelligence we had about Egypt and Trump was far, far firmer than anything they had relating to Trump and Russia. The problem in all of these cases was finding the absolute smoking gun. So, the corruption of the Trump campaign, the first one, and the corruption of his presidency, I suspect at some point we'll get a better fix on it, but it is unparalleled in American history. Oh, and I forgot to say this, in regard to the abortion measures being put on the ballot uh, in these states, this is going to help Democrats, because of turnout, to maybe then pick off some more House seats to regain control of the House of Representatives. And specifically in Arizona, where we have Kari Lake, the loathsome Kari Lake, running for the Senate against Ruben Gallego, who is currently in the House. So his House seat has to be retained, and he has to take the Senate seat. And that would be a flip of that Senate seat to the Democrats. And it's probably, I'm going to guess, that he is going to win that race with this on the ballot. I don't know, but that's just my sense. Republicans there are freaked, but so they pulled together another referendum that is also going to be on the ballot that will be appealing to right-wing voters and might get them more fired up and turn out. And that measure will ask voters to make it a state crime to unlawfully cross the border from Mexico. You know, isn't that something that, well, that's the kind of thing that the jerk in Texas has been doing, trying to make that immigration issue a state issue, which is problematic since securing the borders is not a state function. It's a federal function. Okay. Hey, one of the things I saw this weekend were people taking pictures um, in the airports, like happily, like, I just don't understand the pictures people take. Hi, here I am at the Pittsburgh airport. And I was, human behavior just, I find endlessly entertaining. And I saw this, which freaked me out, that a lot of tourists die taking selfies. I mean, yeah, right? Here I am at the Grand Canyon, right? That's it. At least 379 people have died taking selfies. It's over quite a span from 2008 to 2021. Who the heck compiles this? I don't know. But 379 people. God. Unbelievable. And they died mostly from falling, some drowning, and some transport related. I don't know, what would that be? Here I am on a bullet train in Tokyo. I don't know. What would it be? Whatever. So, but tourists accounted for more than a third of all these hundreds of selfie deaths. That is information that you, I don't know, can squirrel away wherever you think it belongs. um, I got to tell you, this Sunday, the New York Times blew my mind because there were two huge articles, profiles essentially, of two women from Pittsburgh, both of whom I know. And I mean, I'm looking through the paper in Green Bay. My mom gets it on Sundays. And on the front page of the business section, taking up 3/4 of the page, is a graphic of someone I've known since she was a little kid, Bari Weiss. And that led into a 2-page article about what a mover and shaker this 40-year-old Pittsburgh woman has become. Now, I'm going to bet that most of you have heard of her. I'll tell you who has for sure heard of her: all the other movers and shakers, because that's the company in which she now runs. I know Bari's family. I'm close with one of her aunts. I've been at her family's Passover Seders. And I've watched with interest her career. And while I was initially cheering her on, I have to admit, in later years, recent years, I have not been. She's moved way, way, way too far off the center, way to the right. And she will argue that that's not where she is, but I would argue back. Anyway, the New York Times says that she is literally single handedly taking on old media, including former employers of hers like the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal, and showing what media will likely be in the future. And she's creating, they say, this is the business section of the Times, a media empire of her own. Whoa. Now, the last time Bari called me last year, she was in town and she needed I'm trying to remember, I couldn't help her. She, she needed to find a studio, I guess, to do her podcast from, and was under the impression that I had one. Ha! I said, well, if you want to come sit at my dining room table, and that's the last I've heard from her. But I did, the last time I really listened to her is she spoke at Chatham not long ago. She was plugging her book, which was How to Fight Anti-Semitism. And she is mind-blowingly composed, articulate, unrattleable. And as this article points out, even people who can't stomach her politics, if they meet her, they like her. That she is unbelievably charming and charismatic, and I will attest to that. But you know, she's so big that she ended up her free press is what it's called. The free press that she founded beat out all other media, including the New York Times, to print the posthumous collection of letters by Alexei Navalny, the murdered Russian opposition leader. She just is always at the forefront. Jeff Zucker, the former head of CNN, is another mover and shaker who's overwhelmed by her, and he's quoted in the article as saying she's just unafraid, and I think that confidence scares a lot of people. So Mark Cuban is quoted in the article saying, "Yeah, I did her podcast because her dad and I were friends growing up. I respect her efforts as an entrepreneur. He doesn't share her politics, but he is totally impressed by Bari's entrepreneurial skills. Who knew?" The thing that blew me in this article is that the Jerusalem Post listed her as the seventh most influential Jew in the world. Very. Dear God. Weiss House, or Weiss Rugs, which you may have remembered, was founded by her grandfather, and Weiss House is her aunt's now. furniture and carpet. They are so proud of her, and who can blame them? But I just don't. I'm not wild about her. We share some political points of view, but not. It's just getting. Uh-uh. I mean, she even 3 years ago, she was mentioned on Curb Your Enthusiasm. That was 3 years ago. Larry David, the character Larry David in one of the segments, is talking to some Hulu executive, and the executive says, "Hey, come for Shabbat dinner one of these weekends. We had Bari Weiss last Friday night. She's fantastic." And Larry doesn't say a word. He leaves and slams the door. So that was his take on Bari Weiss. He walks out and slams the door. But Bill Maher clearly adores her. When she was at Columbia as a student, her girlfriend was Kate McKinnon of Saturday Night Live fame, and she is now married to another former reporter for the New York Times, Nellie Bowles, and they have a kid. And I don't know. Her dad is very, very conservative, and he too is this charming, charismatic character, Lou. And her mom is not. Her mom is liberal, and Bari says that she grew up in this uh, politically mixed marriage, and she learned in that home that fighting about ideas doesn't mean you can't love someone, that you don't have to, you can love someone with whom you disagree. And I don't know. So there was that, and I was like, geez, Bari. Remember when you were a kid, a little kid? It made me feel old. And then I'm looking through the arts section, and bango, there's a huge picture of another former friend, Vanessa German, who some of you may know. Huge article titled Creativity as a Matter of Survival, about being a citizen artist. And it's about Vanessa German, who lived here for quite some time and not too long ago decamped to, I think, North Carolina. I'm not quite sure. She and I were friends for a period, but we parted ways. But I do have one of her first totemic works, sculpture. I'm looking at it right now. And according to this article, man, I'm going to hang on to it because she's becoming internationally a huge, huge artist, which means that thing I'm looking at might be worth a bunch of money. Yeah. So you may have seen Vanessa in a political light here. She also she lived in Homewood, and she had a front porch, and she did a lot of work out there on her front porch, creating these extraordinary sculptures, uh, often with found material. I mean, mine is it's called Tar Baby. I mean, mine is the dress that this thing is wearing. Vanessa made herself, sewed herself. The mouth of my Tar Baby is made of a shell. It's just her stuff is really mind blowing. Um, she was homeless for a period, but still managed to go to the University of Cincinnati when she was homeless. and got on the dean's list, but then she left. She never got a degree. One thing I found out in this article that I did not know about her is that her grandfather was one of the subjects of the infamous Tuskegee experiment. That's where they literally took a bunch of black men and gave them syphilis. They were treated like guinea pigs. Unbelievable. And then she said she got a secondhand camera at one point, and there was a photographer who sort of helped her, learn how to use it. And his name was James Van Dyke Evers. And it turns out, she later found out, he didn't make a big to do about it, that he was the son of the assassinated civil rights leader, Medgar Evers. So her life was often informed by. She had she's very. At one point, her family moved to Loveland, Ohio. I think that's before they came here to Pittsburgh. And the KKK was active there, and they defaced her house with racist graffiti. And her mother, by the way, an extraordinary quilt artist, her mother refused to paint over it, remove it. And Vanessa remembers her mom saying, no, people get to walk by and see this. She is a poet and does spoken word performance art, which is powerful and mind-blowing. She's amazing. I've always been waiting for her to get one of those MacArthur Awards. I can't believe she hasn't. But doing this work, the artwork on her front porch, little kids in the neighborhood would come over and say, "What are you doing?" And she'd show them what she's doing, and then she would give them scraps of stuff, paper and crayons and other found objects, and said, "Here, you make something." And it got to the point where kids were coming to her home constantly. And she ended up really teaching an unbelievable number of children. She bought a home 3 houses down from her home in Homewood and made it into what was called the Art House. And extraordinary work was done there. So many kids in Homewood learned how artistic creativity there in Homewood. She says in the article, at 8 o'clock in the morning, I would hear, "Miss Vanessa, is the front porch open?" And her art house burned down about 3 years ago, but she is reconstructing another, and it'll be housing for artists. And she does that, she's making a lot of money now. Her art sells for, tens of thousands of dollars. And she's putting some of that still, even though she's left Pittsburgh, she's putting some of that back here into Homewood. So I just was blown away. I'm reading the Sunday Times, and all of these two powerful women I know are featured in it. Wow. Politically, I'm in between the two. I'm the centrist, Bari. I'm in between the two. Ben writes, I remember Bari from community day school when she was in the fourth grade. Yeah, yep, yep. Something. But, her dad is just has always been, a fervent Zionist. And that is something she is as well. And while she may be liberal on many sort of cultural issues, she's, and the fact that she is a married lesbian, but she just doesn't fit comfortably anywhere. Although I think she's getting more and more comfortable with real right wingers. She says in the article that she never voted for Trump, that she voted for Hillary Clinton and Biden. Um, and I can't imagine her voting for Trump now. I I don't know. I don't know. But the anti-Semitism thing has pulled a lot of Jews uh, off the left flank, um, or made them feel unwelcome with their former people they thought were in their tribe, political tribe. And as you know, I felt that strongly as well. The extraordinary anti-Semitism coming now at Jews from the left, every bit as much as from the right. Uh, any Jew who's not in the middle is, I think, nuts. I don't want to sound like Trump. He says any Jew who votes for anybody but him should have their head examined. I think any Jew who votes for him should have their head examined. Margaret's saying, hey, I dealt a lot with Weiss House before she retired. She hasn't retired. Weiss House is now on Highland Avenue. Um, and Stacy Weiss is still very much in charge there. Okay, I just, as long as I found myself on anti-Semitism, I just want to say this, and it just broke my heart again. I received a mailing from the synagogue in Green Bay where I was bat mitzvah, um, and every year I get this because every year the synagogue, as all synagogues I believe do, puts together what's called a book of remembrance, in which people in the congregation list the names of those of their loved ones that have died. And I have always, been in the Book of Remembrance in Green Bay, to honor my father and my grandmothers and my brother, God, Bill, I didn't say that, my uncle, my brother-in-law. Um, and so I got this letter saying, again, this year we are issuing a book of remembrance, and you need to get your entries into us, obviously before the High Holy Days, where the books are given out. And so I did that, and I hadn't finished reading the whole letter, and I happened to late last night. I wonder what else they're saying in here because I didn't go down that far. And then it said this in the last paragraph. And please remember, we must have the names of any guests you may be bringing for services before the holidays so they can be on the list for our security guard. And I think it was last year or the year before that I did go to the High Holy Days. I took my mom, and that synagogue of my youth, only one door was open, not the front door, the side door, much like the synagogue I go to here in Pittsburgh. And there was an armed police officer there. I don't know how many of you, if you go to church, have to walk by armed police, but Jews in America now do. And in fact, that's my synagogue in Green Bay was shot at earlier this year. So the reality of Jewish life in America is different than it has ever been in my lifetime, and not for the better. So that's it for me. I wanted to talk about the Pittsburgh schools. We'll get to that tomorrow. I also want to talk about UPMC. And there's a city paper article you need to read about how it's just ripping the taxpayers of Pittsburgh off more and more and more. And damn it, we, the beleaguered taxpayers of Pittsburgh, we have got to do something about it. Like issue number 1 in town, I would say. All right, that's it for me. Have a good one. And yeah, I'll see you tomorrow. Okay.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.